Well, it's good to be here. It's so good to see everybody here. And I want to thank you for allowing me to come down and to share my life, as scary as that might be. It's an amazing thing. But it's kind of funny, and I wanted to do that with you because I wanted to show you how God does what He does in our lives despite us. Amen. Despite us. And you know, in my particular situation, it was very, very interesting because, you know, when I started out, you know, back in my high school days, I couldn't stand school. I didn't want to go, you know, so I continually got in trouble. I used to skip class. I'd skip class, walk down to the liquor store, and we knew a liquor store at the age of 17, 18 years old where I could go buy myself some liquor. So I'd go down there and I'd buy myself a pint of 151. And I'd drink it all by the time I got back to class. So I'd go to class, and it made it easy for me to sit there through class. So it was you know, they talk about this and talk about that. You know, as long as they weren't teaching us about prohibition, everything was fine. You know? But anyway, one thing would always lead to another, you know. And my life really, really took a downward dive when I was at the age of 18. I had a job down at Miramar Naval Air Station. And when I'd go down there and stuff, I'd meet with some of the EM guys, rather the enlisted guys, the enlisted men. And one of these guys one day, he catches me in the bathroom. And he says, hey man, I got a little something here in the bag. He says, would you like to check it out? Oh, well, sure. Why not? He says, well, these little things here, they cost $10. And I'm like, well, $10? I said, what is it? He says, it's cocaine. So I thought to myself, well, okay, well, I thought that what I was signing up for was a psychedelic trip. You know, I thought that cocaine, I was going to be able to do this, and I was going to see colors and rainbows and all that kind of stuff. And so I decided, I'll give it a shot. So I snorted this little line, you know, and I went back out. And all of a sudden, I got real happy. And I didn't see anything weird. I was like, everything was fine, everything looked normal, but I just felt really, really happy. So I thought, man, this stuff is great. So the next time I know, I'd go see him again, you know, a couple of times, and I'd spend another $10. And after a while, I began to just get high, and I thought, this is really cool. This made me feel cool, you know. And I thought, you know, I could go ahead and I could do this. And everybody that I talk to, they need to understand that I'm cool. I wasn't cool, I just thought I was. You know, that's the way this stuff does you. It makes you think you're cool, but you're not, really. It's just like, you know, you get up to sing a song and you think you did a really good job, and everyone's looking at you like this, you know. What are you doing up there? So anyway, it took on another life of its own. And I began to get high. And my own father, when I'd go and see him, I went out and I had myself a spoon made and hung it around my neck. I thought it was cool. And so my dad is sitting there and he's talking to me and he's going, so son, and he keeps taking a look at this spoon that's hanging on my neck. And he never said anything. He just kind of let me go on about my business because at the age of 17 actually, I left home, you know, and went and got an apartment with the rest of the guys. When I was in high school, I was playing football and hanging out with the guys doing that. And just one thing led to another, and my life just started to spin out of control. Well, when I finally started, it started to take on this life of its own. And I began to spend all my money. I couldn't hold a job. I mean, I held a job at first, and I would take my money and I'd spend it on drugs. You know, I'd spend it on whatever else it was that I was doing, drinking and partying and all that stuff, until I finally came to the point where all my money was going to the dope man. And you know, if you're going to spend all your money on the dope man, you're not going to have any money to pay your rent. You're not going to have any money to put gas or to buy yourself a car. And so what happens is that it slowly began to take away everything that I had. Well, lo and behold, the only thing I had left was I think it was a Big Bear cart, push basket, with everything that I owned in it. And I would push it around, and go here and go there. Just didn't have anything. And everything that I had in the basket came out of the dumpster. Clothes that I was wearing. And if I got hungry, the only thing I could eat was something out of the dumpster too. But at least it was a Big Bear dumpster. So I'd go to the Big Bear dumpster and I'd look for something to eat, and I'd find, pastries and bread and stuff like that. So I'd be able to get myself something to eat. And if I really, really got good, I'd go to Jack in the Box or McDonald's, and I'd go into their dumpster and find what was called the manager's waste. And what it was burgers that they never sold. So I pulled the bag out and I had burgers. And that was when I was really, really feasting, Had something that I pulled out of the dumpster like that. Burgers, a cheeseburger or something, man. I was in McDonald's heaven. eating this stuff that I thought was really good for me. Anyway, one particular day, and this is when God began to work. And I didn't understand what was happening at first. And before I start telling you this, I want you to understand that no matter what it is, the Bible tells us that man plans, he makes plans of what it is that he wants to do, but it's God who orders his steps. And so, it's one of the things that I had to come to understand, and I want everybody here to understand, it's not about what it is that we plan to do. It's what it is that God has for you to do. He's going to lead you. He's going to guide you to that place when the time comes. So anyway, I pushed my basket down this alley. And I hate that when that happens. So I pushed my basket down this alley. And I go to the dope house that I used to frequent. And so I'm out in the alley and I'm sitting behind the house and I'm thinking, well, soon somebody's going to come out that I know and maybe they'll share something with me so I can get high with them. Well, I sat there and there was a big block of concrete wall. And so I decided I'll get up on the wall and I'll just sit there. So I got up on the wall. I'm sitting on the wall and I'm waiting for somebody to come out. It was a bad night. It started to sprinkle a little bit. And I started thinking to myself, and I said, man, look at me. I said, what happened? I don't understand what happened. I said, I was a guy in high school, even though I didn't like to be there, but I was popular, and I thought, I was the guy who was supposed to be most likely to succeed. And I said, and look at me now, look at this, I'm homeless, I'm pushing a basket. What is going on here? And all of a sudden, I hear a little voice, kind of in my spirit. It says, Tony, why don't you pray? I want to pray. What good is that going to do? And the voice says, well, how can it hurt? And so I thought, well, that's true. So I'll pray. So I began to pray. And I talked to God just like I'm talking to you now. And I said, God, I don't even know if you're real. I never saw you do anything. I read the book. It said that you parted the Red Sea and that you raised the people from the dead, all these different things. But I never saw you do anything. I said, but if you're real, I need your help right now. Now, first of all, I want you to understand, I was a guy that liked long hair, so my hair was all over my head. And if I was walking down the street, down the sidewalk, and you were walking towards me, I'm looking at you and you're probably crossing the street because you don't want to walk by me. Okay, that's how wild I look. And to be real honest with you, when I looked at you, I'm thinking to myself, you must owe me something. That's the way I'm looking at things. Because I'm thinking, I got to come up with something, But people would not want, they didn't want to walk by me. So anyway, I'm looking pretty wild. So as I'm sitting on this wall and I'm praying, and I told God I didn't know if he was real. I told him, I said, if you're really real, I said, I need your help. I said, because I've got this drug problem, and I can't beat it. I tried to stop getting high. I tried to stop the drugs. And I couldn't do it. I even cleaned up one time, 6 months clean. And when I fell back in worse than it ever was before. And so I'm like, man, I can't fix this problem. So I need your help. Anyway, so I'm sitting there, and something told me to begin to confess my sins. So I'm like, ooh. So I started thinking back through the years, and I said, oh, okay, I remember this one, and so I'd confess it, and I'd ask God to forgive me. And I'd think about some other ones, and I'd confess those, and I'd ask to forgive me. So 2 weeks later, I was... Anyway, I'm trying to think of all these sins. I was there for hours, literally. Hours, just thinking of stuff that I did. And just confessing it and asking God to forgive me. Well, the strangest thing happened to me. You know, as I was going through this prayer, it took on a heat inside. And I was praying, man, and it was so intense. It was so intense, and I began to cry. But then fortunately for me, the rain started happening. And I was appreciative of that, because if anybody came out, I didn't want them to see me crying. And so the tears were kind of intermingling with the raindrops. And so I was appreciative of that. So I finally finished praying and confessing all my sins. And I jumped down off of the wall, and I felt light as a feather. People, you understand this. If somebody tells you that sin doesn't weigh anything, that's a lie. That's a lie. I did all the sins that I had committed and everything that I confessed. When God took those off of me, I felt light as a feather. And I literally, when I jumped down, I was going. I just felt light. And so I grabbed my basket, and I could feel something was with me. I could feel something was happening, but I didn't know what. And so I pushed my basket across the alley to an abandoned garage. And I went in the garage, and I was soaking wet. You know, I was soaking wet from head to toe. And I didn't have a blanket, I didn't have a jacket or anything. And I was tired, I was very tired. And so I laid down on the concrete, and I went to sleep. Now, I slept there all night long. All night long. And in the morning time, when I woke up, I got up, and I was dry from my head to my toes on every part of my body. And it was, you know, when you're soaking wet and you lay on your side or something, when you get up, your side is still soaked. Everything was dry. And I knew something was strange, something was going on. And so I walked outside, and I looked up in the air, in the sky, and it was just a beautiful blue sky with a couple of, not even a cloud in the sky, just beautiful. And so I sat there, and I looked around, and I thought, well, I think I'll break into the house up front. It was abandoned too. Where it was down in San Diego, and I don't know if you guys know about this, but years ago, the 15 used to go up into the North Park area, and it became 40th Street. And you'd go on through. Well, they were buying up all the property next to it so that they could widen the 15 and take the 15 straight on through. So the houses were abandoned. So I went up there and I started tearing the wood off of the window so I could go in there and I'd have a place to stay. I tore the wood off the window, and right then the cops came. I went, oh. Well, I know I'm in trouble now because I had warrants for my arrest. I knew I had warrants for my arrest. Because every time, it got to the point where they were arresting me every weekend. Every weekend, every Friday they'd arrest me, and I'd go in on Friday night. I'd stay there, and then you couldn't go to court on Saturday. You couldn't go to court on Sunday, and your days being there didn't start until Monday. My luck, Monday was a holiday, so I couldn't go to court on Monday. So my days didn't start until Tuesday. So sometimes I spent 7 days in jail before they would OR me. So then when they'd OR me, they say, well, here, sign this, says you're going to come back. And I said, sure, you know, so I sign it, and then I just leave. I didn't go back. So finally, I ended up with an awful lot of warrants for my arrest. They wanted to pick me up for being under the influence, and they wanted to pick me up for failures to appear and all this kind of stuff. So when the cops came up, I knew that I had to give them a different name. If I gave them my name, I was going to jail, and I knew it. So he says, what's your name? And I went, Ronaldo Rivera. He looks at me and he goes, okay. He asked me how to spell it, so I spelled it, you know, he put it into the computer. And sure enough, it came back clean. He says, well, he says, we don't need to take you in. He says, you have no warrants. And I said, well, yeah, I could have told you that.
You're hoping that.
Yeah, so he says to me, he says, well, you tore the wood off the house. He says, you're going to have to go ahead and put it back up. So he took a hammer out and some nails, and he told me to go and nail the wood back up on the window. So I went over there and I nailed it up, and came back and brought him back his hammer. And he got in his car and he took off. Well, I walked over to the garage and I leaned against the wall and I just slid down the wall all the way down until I was seated. And I looked up in the sky and I said, well, God, I guess you don't really exist. And I was not going to believe in God anymore from that point on. I poured my heart out the night before, asking for help, confessing my sins, everything. And I thought, well, he didn't let me go into this house where I could have a place to stay, so I guess he doesn't exist. Right then, this lady comes walking across the alley. She was wearing a white terry cloth robe. She had a cup in her hand. And she walks up to me and she says, I'm mad at my boyfriend. And I went, well, what? She says, well, he called the cops on you. And I said, well, no big deal. I got out of it. She says, well, he didn't have to do that. And I said, no harm done. She says, do you want this? And I said, what is it? She says, it's warm milk and sugar. Now, mind you, my hair is all over my head. I had a big beard with leaves, everything in it. I'm looking pretty scary. But she came over, and this is the first act of kindness that I had experienced in a long time. And so she says, I took the cup and I'm sipping. She says, are you hungry? I said, yeah. She says, why don't you come over to the back door of my house, and I'll fix you some sandwiches. I said, okay. So I followed her across the alley and sat down on her step in the back on her porch. And she went into the kitchen and started making me some sandwiches. Well, her boyfriend came out and we started talking. And as we talked for a while, he says to me, talking to you, you sound like you have more going on than what I see. And I said, I have a drug problem and I can't seem to get rid of it. And I said, I tried. I said, I cleaned up 6 months one time. And I said, and then I fell back into it. It's been worse than it ever was. And he looks at me and he says, well, have you tried to get any public help? Well, I didn't even know there was any public help. And so I'm sitting there with the cup in my hand and sandwich in this hand. And I looked up at him and the tears just began to run down my face. And I said, man, nobody's going to help me. And he looks at me, and he decides to go in the house, and he gets on the phone. And he starts making these phone calls. He stayed on the phone, and he called a place that was a crisis center, and got me an appointment to go down there, and he was, that I could get received or taken by them by 4:30 that night. But it was in the morning, so he knew that I wasn't going to be able to get down there. I had no transportation or anything. That guy, I didn't even know him. And he stayed with me all day, took me down to the park. We just hung out at the park and talked and threw the frisbee around and all that stuff until about 4 o'clock, and then he put me in the car and he drove me downtown. And he dropped me off there at this crisis center. I went there and I stayed in the crisis center for 7 days. And then, at the end of that 7 days, they gave me a pass, a ticket to go down to a place called Green Oak Ranch. I don't know if any of you know where it's at or heard of it before. It was in Vista, California. And it was a rehabilitation place. And so I went there and got checked in. Now, the funny thing about I got to tell you about this. I'm not the kind of guy that can show weakness around other men. At least that's where I used to be. Now it's not like that anymore. But so I had to show strength. Like I was really bad. And so I went into this office where the chaplain was. His name was Chaplain Yoder, I'll never forget. I went in there, and Chaplain Yoder's sitting at the desk, and he's doing some paperwork. He's got his glasses on. He's writing, and he says to me, I told him all about it. He says, well, have a seat. So I sat down, and as I sat down, I threw my chest out, you know. And I put my arm up on the desk. Trying to flex it, you know, like I'm all that. I mean, he didn't even pay me any mind. And I'm sitting there like this, I'm waiting for him to finish, and I got this hard look on my face. And so he finishes. He puts his pen down, takes his glasses off, folds them up, puts them on the desk, and he folds his hands. And he looks at me and he says, so, how can I help you? And I went, I just started crying, man. I started crying uncontrollably. I was so broken inside. And I never realized what it was like to be broken. To be broken to the point I couldn't even converse. I couldn't even talk. I was so destroyed inside. Just hurting my heart, completely demolished. And you know, here I was, this guy that was supposed to be the most, you know, the hostess with the mostest. I was supposed to be the guy, you know, that can, and all of a sudden here I am, just completely without friends, without family, without anybody to even converse with. And I just broke down and cried like a baby. And he's trying to get me to talk, and I couldn't talk because I couldn't catch my breath. And he finally looks at me and he goes, okay, we'll take you. So I checked in to Green Oak Ranch, you know, where I began my rehabilitation. Now, the interesting thing about Green Oak Ranch is that it was predominantly Baptist at that time. People around there. Now, my mother was a Jehovah's Witness. So she raised me to be one. So I understood what the doctrine was. And you know, there's so many things. Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe that Jesus is God. They didn't believe in that stuff. They didn't believe in a whole lot of things. And so I'm sitting there, and if you know anything about Jehovah's Witnesses, the first thing that begins to happen is a whole lot of debates. There's debating going on. We're arguing. We're talking about this. People are telling me Jesus is God. I'm going, Jesus isn't God. Jesus is the Son of God. And we're talking. We're going through this, and we're going through that. Well, finally, they're taking me to Scripture. And I'm showing them Scriptures where the Bible says that Jesus is the Son of God. Well, they're showing me Scriptures that are saying that Jesus is God. And I'm like, whoa. Where did that come from? And so that I knew that God had his hand on me. Something was going on. I could tell that something was happening because of where I was, and you know that my drug problem had been, you know, it was like he relieved me from when I thought of the name cocaine. It sent me out on a mission. I had to go get something, and it didn't matter if I didn't have any money. I had to do whatever kind of crime I had to do in order to get it. Well, all of a sudden, it's like, you know, when God delivered me from that, I no longer had that desire to just go out and get it. So I'm sitting there, and so I no longer had that desire. So I'm sitting there, and what I'm doing is going through these things with these people, talking about who Jesus is. This is the thing that God used to bring me to Him. Because I'm sitting there, and I'm reading things in the Bible that are telling me that Jesus is God, but I'm not believing it. And so I prayed to the Lord, and I told him, I said, what's going on here? I said, I don't believe that Jesus is God. And I'm talking to him just like I'm talking to you now. Because when I prayed to him, he was answering me. And I said, I don't believe that Jesus is God, and I believe that I have the truth. I said, but it showed me in the Bible where you said, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. You showed me things in John 1:1. In the beginning was the Word was with God, and the Word was God. You showed me things in the Scripture where Jesus says, I and the Father are one. You know, I'm reading all these things, and then I'm looking at Isaiah 9:6, where Jesus, you know, was saying that he's the he's not only he's the wonderful counselor, the mighty God, the Prince of Peace, the eternal Father. So I said, so in prayer I'm going, why does the Word say this? If what I have is the truth. I said, what I have is the truth. Why did you say that? And he said, don't you know that that's going to confuse people? So I kept hearing in my prayer his voice saying, don't worry, Tony, just keep going the way that you're going. Everything is going to be fine. So I said, okay. Well, I began to go into a deep depression because I finally wanted to serve God, but I didn't know how. I didn't know Him. Didn't know who He was. So I'm sitting there in a classroom up on the hill. 9 other men in the classroom with me. Big picture glass window in front of me. And what I'm about to tell you is the absolute truth. So help me God. I'm sitting there, and I look up, and I see through the window all this sparkling light in the air, shimmering light. And I'm like, and it comes forward, comes through the glass and the wall, everything comes into the room and fills up the room like smoke. And I'm going, does anybody else see this? And they said, no, we don't see anything. You don't see this? No. And it got real thick, and all of a sudden I hear a voice right behind me. It says, Tony, John 1:1, the Word. And I said, John 1:1, and he says, recite it. John 1:1. So I said, in the beginning was the Word. The Word was with God. And the Word was, and as soon as I said God, it was like somebody ripped the blinders off of my eyes, and immediately I understood who Jesus was. Just that quick. Amen. And not only that, but every other verse that I did not understand in the Bible was instantaneously answered. And I understood it right from there. So I was like, I was blown away because I went, and right then I felt something coming up through my feet and my legs, like power. And it was running up my legs and up my torso. And I thought, I got to get out of here because I know that as soon as it hits my eyes, it's going to come out of my eyes with tears. And I can't let these guys see this. So I jumped up and I started heading for the door. And then I didn't even get there, man. It hit me and it just blasted out of my eyes with tears. And I dropped down on my knees, and all I could do was weep. I just wept and I cried. And every thought, everything that I'd never understood before was, I could understand it now. I could see who Jesus was and what it was that He was doing. And so one thing led to another, and I finally crawled outside. And when I got outside, I crawled across the parking lot. And I sat down, and I was overlooking this big valley. And I could feel the Holy Spirit right here, looking at me and smiling. I could feel it. And I was crying.
Amen.
I was crying, man. My God, God did this for me. Because I told Him before, I said, look, if Jesus is God, don't send some man to try to convince me, because I'm not going to believe him. I said, so if Jesus is God, you got to come and convince me yourself. Be careful what you pray for. Because He did. He came. He came to me. And it showed me how much He loves us. That He will take the time to come and spend it with you personally. To bring you to Him. So I'm sitting there, and I'm crying, and I looked up, and I could tell He was smiling at me, and I said, you know what this means, don't you? It means I can't go home. Because I planned to get rid of the drug problem, and to get my life together, and I was going to go home where my mom was, and to become a good Jehovah's Witness. That was my plan. But I told Him, I said, I can't go home now. I said, but it's okay. I said, because I choose you. Because now I know the truth. So I had to get rid of all the baggage and the belief structure and the false religion. I had to just forget it. It started started all over again. So what God did was he began to work with me. And like I told you before, this is a guy that couldn't stand school. Couldn't stand it. Couldn't sit there. Didn't want to deal with it. And so I used to, now that I was understanding who God was and who Jesus was, I prayed and I said, well, Lord, do you want me to go to school now? You know, do you want me to kind of get going in the right direction so that you can do something with my life? And he said, you don't have to do that right now, Tom. He says, all I want you to do is follow me. You just follow me. I'll take care of the rest. So I was like, wow. Let me tell you something, Jonah. When God says he can take care of the rest and all he wants you to do is follow him, that takes all the weight off of you. You don't have to worry about making these intricate decisions about your life so that you can be everything that you think that you should become. God already knows what he's going to do with you. He already has his hand on you. He already knows what your job is going to be, what it is that you're going to do. So he did that with me. And so all I did was concentrate on following him. And I kept remembering Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness. Everything else will be added to you. And so that's what I just concentrated on. I began to walk with him to the best of my ability. And the next thing I know, he brought me to from Green Oak, he brought me downtown Los Angeles, involved with Central City Community Church of the Nazarene. Got involved with that. I was walking under Pastor Scott Chamberlain. And my wife and myself, we fell in love with Central City. We decided to give our lives to that church and to that fellowship and our resources when we began to work. And God began to do some great things in my life, things that I never imagined. And so I was like, well, let me just follow Jesus no matter where this takes me. I'm on this ride now, and whatever is like, man, what a ride, because he's taking me where he wants me to go. And I will be doggone if he didn't say, well, you know what, Tony, I think we want to make you the pastor of Central City Community Church of the Nazarene. Reverend Ferguson came down, and he appointed me the pastor there. And the only thing that, in conclusion, what I want to share with you is that we make plans. We make plans to do with our life, with whatever it is that we think that we should do. But God's already got plans for you. He already knows where he's taking you. And he had me by the hand, and I didn't even know. And he was taking me to a place where he wanted me to serve. And he gave me Central City Community Church of the Nazarene, right down in the heart of Skid Row. So what does he do? He takes me out of homelessness, straightens me up, cleans me up, and then throws me right back down there again and says, okay, now you know what to tell everybody. That there's a way out. That you don't have to live your life this way. God has got sometimes what God has to do is he has to take you down to the bare bones, to where there is nothing left. And that's where I was in that alley. There was nothing left. Nothing. And all he used a lady in a white terry cloth robe to begin the work that he was going to do. And he's just completely changed my life. That was 26 years ago.
Amen.
So now I belong to him. And 7 years after I came to him, he brought me my wife. He gave me a wife. And she's been in the ministry with me. The love of my life. And I never thought that I'd have one of those. All the women that the women that I had before I became really wild looking, the women that I had, they didn't mean anything to me. And so I just got rid of them. All of a sudden, I got a wife, and we just had our 20th anniversary.
Amen.
Amen? So God knew just what he was doing, and I have completely rested in his hands. And that's the only place where we can all do exactly what it is we're supposed to do. Give it all to Jesus. Let him take care of it. He's the one that is going to take care of not only you, but every situation that you find yourself in. Any trouble, any problems, any issues. Share the good. share the bad. Everything with him that you possibly can. And he's going to make sure that you're okay.